Hello, Dr. Croston. My name is Chris Fagala. This video is for class PS 610 and the title is North Korea. For the past 63 years, North Korea has had hostile relations with South Korea and the United States. In 1950, a civil war broke out on the Korean peninsula, putting the South against the North. The country of China helped protect the North, while the United States and other United Nations members helped protect the South. In 1953, both the North and the South signed an armistice, not a peace treaty, to end the armed conflict and divide Korea into two countries along the 38th parallel. To this day, the 2-mile wide demilitarized zone continues to separate the two sides as tensions remain high, as both sides seem ready to go back to war at any moment. The relationship between North Korea and the United States has also not been very good one since the armistice. For this reason, the United States still keeps approximately 37,000 troops on the ground in South Korea as a deterrent to keep North Korea at bay. As a show of force on March 28, 2013, the United States had a nuclear-capable B-2 Spirit bomber fly more than 6,500 miles from Whitman Air Force Base in Missouri to South Korea, dropping inert munitions there as part of the exercises, before returning to the U.S. mainland. North Korea has been trying to acquire nuclear weapons longer than just a couple of years. Not 10 or 20 years, not even 30 years. In fact, North Korea began developing its own program in the late 1970s. This is far too long the world to hold its breath. In the following paper, I'm going to take you into the past and present regarding North Korea's willingness for nuclear weapons. Then I'll take you into the future as to how I believe my certain approach towards North Korea will forever prevent the North from becoming a nuclear power. With a few countries, I would say that we need a lot more hard and a lot less soft power. The time is now to change the policy and procedures pertaining to punishments given to countries that are trying to acquire weapons of mass destruction. In order to do this, I highly suggest a couple of ways in the following paper in which it will lead to the immediate end to this extremely dangerous activity, and would restructure the current policies and procedures that are being followed that gives the criminal countries their so-called punishment. By doing so, it would mean a much safer world for all of us. Too often a country has gotten away with crime that should not have ever happened in the first place. Too often a country has been punished and still says time and time again that this is for peaceful purposes only. Then still winds up making a weapon of mass destruction. And too little has been done to prevent these horrible inventions from falling in the wrong hands. This brings me to my first change of policy, and that is getting rid of the gradual increase of sanctions when a country commits a serious crime against humanity. A gradual increase would mean that they would have to stop a part of their illegal activity, but not all of it, since they can still get by with that little punishment given to them. If you want country A to immediately stop their illegal activity, countries B through Z would need to make that punishment be felt. An example of a frog in boiling water comes to mind with this new policy. The frog will jump out immediately if put in the boiling water. If the temperature of the water is gradually increased, then the frog will continue to stay in the pan. Likewise, if a country has sanctions so boiling hot that it is felt throughout the entire country, then that country will jump out of the pan and halt their illegal activity altogether. Figuratively speaking, of course, about the hot boiling water. To further help prevent North Korea or any country from trying to obtain weapons of mass destruction, not just unilateral sanctions need to go into place, but multilateral sanctions. The United States can't be the only state to go day in and day out policing the world. The taxpayers are getting frustrated by this. The rest of the world needs to step up. The shunning of a country would be immediately effective when it legislates as multilateral participation rather than just unilateral. Unilateral sanctions, especially economic sanctions, would cost a lot more for the single country that originated the sanctions than it would with multiple countries. Above all, unilateral economic sanctions would be inconclusive because the trade world is so huge. To keep track of the sanctioned products is hard and a costly job. Under the multilateral blocking circumstances, a sanctioned country would be under such massive pressure that it would finally realize that they would need to adhere to these policies or possibly risk losing the lives of thousands of people. Depending on how equipped a country is with its own natural resources, a country that breaks the law may very well need longer than just a year of punishment from more than one country for the sanctions to work or the criminal activity could continue. If a sanctioned country asks an ally for help due to the lack of product, then the country that tries to help that sanctioned country will also receive sanctions. President Obama and all member state leaders need to step up and show the world that when a law goes into effect, it must be followed, or it's being put into the pan of boiling water I mentioned earlier. One thing the North Korean government is going well for them is their use of propaganda since the 1970s. I suggest the world use that propaganda against them with the use of boycotting North Korea altogether through a worldwide trade embargo. The citizens will then protest the government and demand that they listen to the rest of the world or continue to starve to death. If the citizens of North Korea think of Kim Jong-un as a god, then let him feed his citizens and show that he is a true leader, not like the tyrant that runs the country before him. Until this uprising, the consequences of these sanctions would be horrendous for the citizens of North Korea. Food would run out, drinkable water scarce, and the amount of malnourished people would increase. Sanctions against Iraq in the 90s, for example, led to the hundreds of thousands of preventable deaths throughout the Iraq until an oil for food program was initiated in 1996. By adapting a similar approach, I believe that a nuclear disarmament for food program under UN regulation would be an ideal way to rid this country of its highly unauthorized technology. With the help of China, North Korea's main ally, North Korea would adhere to the United States as well as international ongoing demands. If North Korea continues to act in a criminal way after heavy sanctions are imposed, the next form of punishment would be the use of military intervention. No country is ever above the law. It is time for North Korea's sanctions. It is time to get North Korean sanctions correct. Current sanctions on North Korea must become more stringent than what they are. Right now, the only thing being taken away from North Korea is luxury yachts, supercars, precious jewels, and a few people have their assets frozen. What good is that going to do? Sanctions I recommend that have been working in the past and are still in place is United States sanctions against Cuba for the Cuban Assets Control Regulation 31 CFR Part 515, the regulations, were issued by the U.S. government on July 8, 1963 under the Trading with the Enemy Act, in response to certain hostile actions by the Cuban government. This all-out embargo with Cuba has been in place for over 50 years, and economic hardship has made Cuba lose an estimated $1.1 trillion. Another country that is currently under heavy sanction is Iran. Put in place by the United States and European Union, it is believed that last year's sanction alone cost Iran's economy around $100 billion, or nearly a quarter of its output. As of November 14, 2013, the United States is looking to ease sanctions on Iran, which may earn an estimated 20 to 40 billion back per year. I strongly disagree with this strategy. If this happens, it can give Iran exactly what it needs to once again be on the prowl for nuclear weapons and bring a disturbance in the international community. North Korea can lose much more aid going in and out of Cuba as strict as it needs to be to make the world known throughout the world the United States doesn't mess around with criminal activity. The international community needs to follow suit with North Korea as well as with Iran. By the world turning their backs to Pyongyang, the citizens of North Korea will scream out to their dear leader to adhere to United States law and international law. The world must not cave into their screams for help by offering aid until this nuclear bomb-winning leader follows through with the world's demands by turning over all nuclear weapons technology. The North Korean government has time and time again called out for aid and then continues on to try to improve their nuclear weapons. We cannot do this anymore. Kim Jong-un must make the first move. These new policies I've suggested should be implemented for all countries to immediately obey by, not just solely on North Korea, which tries to go against international law seemingly on an everyday basis. The world will continue to remain at hostage to nuclear weapons until the last nuke has been dismantled. The time to follow this new policy is now.